Shalom Aleichem.
Aleichem Shalom.
Sehr gut. Welcome. On behalf of the parents, the teachers, and the students of the Midtown Workman Circle Shula, it's my honor to welcome you to today's B'nai Mitzvah ceremony. We are all kvelling here. We're overflowing with pride. We're kvelling at what these 8 have accomplished this year. They're leaders, thinkers, artists, activists, and they've inspired us all. But I think the best thing to do is to get started and to let them speak for themselves. So here are Asher, Isa, Benjamin, Alice, Caleb, Ella, Jordan, and Gigi. Let's give them a big round of applause. And you know, there's a wonderful Yiddish expression that says, before I speak, I have a few things to say. So with that in mind, we're going to invite up, we're very honored to have Peter Pepper, the president of the Workmen's Circle, and also a founder of the Midtown Workmen's Circle Shula, to come up and say a word of greeting.
Hello.
Hello.
What are you, what are my classes? Hello. Hello. Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Marcy and I are honored to be here. Marcy is my wife. This is very, very special. I'm speaking to you on behalf of the board of the Workmen's Circle, several people who are here. Let me just mention them because I think it's important. We have Rich Rumelt, a former board member, Alan Breslau, a former board member, Richard Brook, a current board member, Bernice Siegel, a current board member, and of course your own wonderful Eva Zasloff. So, last night, and I have to mention this because I can get props for this, right? Last night for my wife's birthday, I won't mention which one, but for her birthday, we had the pleasure and honor of having dinner with my son Sam and his wife Allison. Still hard for me to say that, by the way. Sam is now going to be 32 years old. Sam was here when he was about 6 years old, right? It's approximately 26 years ago that we started this school with a number of other wonderful, wonderful families. I spoke to Jack Jacobs and Susan Malamed a little bit before yesterday, who are also among those parents. By the way, your own Don Budnick is here. Don Budnick and Jill Budnick are the parents of 2 former Shula children. So wonderful, it's wonderful. And we would never have imagined that 27 years later, we would be here in front of an enormous crowd at Kindering. It is wonderful. And what you represent, and you know, without trying to get too serious, strong, progressive values, Yiddish language, not these things, quite honestly, without getting into the negative, could not be more important to be taught in these particular times. This is a very, very, very big deal to me. So I promised them I would keep it short. I will keep it short, as suggested. To Asher, Jordan, Isa, Caleb, Alice, Ella, Benjamin, and Gigi, and your families, and your friends, we are so proud of you, so proud of your accomplishments, so proud of what you're about to present, and thank you so much for continuing a wonderful legacy. Thank you.
Sholem, sholem, sholem.
my pleasure to invite up for our first presentation, Asher Coughlin.
Hello and welcome. My name is Asher Coughlin, and today I will be telling you about the digital revolution and 3 different inventors, one of them being my amazing grandfather, Alec Feiner. He survived a turbulent childhood and adolescence during World War II and went on to contribute inventions that changed the telephone communications. I'm also going to introduce 2 other important Jewish inventors, Theodore Maimon and Leonard Kleinrock, whose inventions have also changed our world. They were all pioneers of the digital revolution. I have been always drawn to technology because of its capability to succeed where our own abilities cannot. It is the perfect combination of intelligence and dreams. The digital revolution was the change from mechanical and analog technology to digital electronics, which began in the 1950s and exploded in the 1970s with the adoption and usage of digital computers. The term also refers to the sweeping changes brought by digital computing and communication technology during and after the later half of the 20th century. It brought about modern phones and modern computers for everyone. The whole digital revolution was based off the idea that inventions don't have to be used and made for war. Leonard Kleinrock, the creator of the internet. It all began with a comic book. At the age of 6, Leonard Kleinrock was reading a Superman comic at his apartment in Manhattan when he found plans for building a radio. To do so, he needed his father's used razor blade, a piece of pencil lead, an empty toilet paper roll, and some wire, all of which he had no trouble obtaining. In addition, he needed an earphone which he took from a public telephone booth. The one remaining part was something called a variable capacitor. For this, he convinced his mother to take him on the subway down to Canal Street, the Center for Radio Electronics. After explaining to the salesperson why he wanted one, the clerk sold him just what he needed. Kleinrock built the radio and was totally hooked when free music came through the earphones. No batteries, no power, all free. An engineer was born. As an adult graduate student at MIT, he went on to develop a mathematical theory for packet networks. 7 years later, the internet was born in his UCLA laboratory when his computer became the first part of the internet. And it was from there that he directed the transmission of the first message to pass over the internet on October 29, 1969. Professor Leonard Kleinrock is currently a distinguished professor of computer science at UCLA. He has earned a National Medal of Science for Mathematics and Computer Science, the IEEE Internet Award, Guggenheim Fellowship for Natural Sciences, US and Canada, and much more. Theodore Maimon, the father of the laser. Maimon was born in Los Angeles, California, to Abraham Maimon, an electrical engineer and inventor, and Rose Abramson. At a young age, his family moved to Denver, Colorado, where he helped his father with experiments in home electronics laboratory. In his teens, Maimon earned money by repairing electrical appliances and radios. And after leaving high school, he was employed as a junior engineer with the National Union Radio Company at age 17. Maimon served a year in the U.S. Navy at the end of World War II and then went on to earn a bachelor's degree in engineering physics at the University of Colorado. After Colorado, he wanted to study further at Stanford and applied repeatedly. After several applications and rejections from the physics department, he finally tried engineering school and was accepted. After graduating from Stanford, he moved to California and found a job at the Hughes Research Laboratory. In 1959, Hughes put Ted in charge of building a laser. Other science groups had hundreds of scientists and millions of dollars. Maimon had 50,000 in himself. Many laser prototypes were built. They all failed. The task was very difficult. The laser had to be able to work at room temperature, and it had to be small enough to fit in his hand. During his work, he tried many materials for his laser. He had started off with the ruby, but was continually told it would not work. At first, he listened to his critics and tried other materials, but eventually he went back to his original idea of using a pink ruby. He was at the very bottom of his finance when this pink ruby laser finally worked. Even after he built a working laser, his troubles weren't over. People said it was a hoax, useless, or even a death ray. He had that extra bit of courage to brush the outrageous comments off his shoulder and continue at what he did best. Today, lasers are used in almost every field, whether it be surgery, barcode scanners, aircraft radars, or fiber optics. Mayman received numerous prizes and awards over the years for his development of the first laser. He was given membership in the National Academies of Sciences and Engineering, American Physical Society, the Optical Society of America, and the Society of Photo-Optical Instrumentation Engineers. In 1962, Mayman was awarded the Franklin Institute Stuart Ballantine Medal for Physics. Now I'm going to switch to something more personal, my grandfather. As I mentioned, he grew up in Poland and his life was turned upside down by the onset of World War II. Who could have known that a boy deprived of his parents and basic necessities like food and shelter at such a young age would grow up to be such an accomplished inventor? This is a picture of Alec and his brother George from the early 1930s in Poland. Alec was 11 years old when World War II started. He lived through 6 years of wartime, and unlike the other inventors, he did not grow up in a safe environment. He didn't even go to high school. His family had to flee Poland as the Nazis advanced. Poland was partitioned between the Germans and the Russians, and his family fled to Lvov, in the Russian part. Unfortunately, they were then deported deep into Russia on cattle cars, and were eventually moved to a Russian encampment. At one point, Alex suffered from appendicitis, high fever, and rapid shaking. His parents expected him to die, but he pulled through with combinations of miracles and persistence. Life was harsh, but things got even worse when his father refused to apply for Soviet passports for fear of being forced to remain in the Soviet Union. For that, the family was sentenced to prison. Since he was under 15, Alec was spared. He was left to fend for himself, scavenging for food, and trying to help his family in any way he could. Eventually, he was reunited with his mother and brother. Sadly, he lost his father to starvation in the camp. After the war, Alec, his brother, and his mother made their way back to Krakow, Poland, then eventually to Vienna, where he was able to resume his education. In 1950, he boarded the USS John J. McRae in Bremerhaven, and finally docked near the Verrazzano Straits, where he started a new life in New York City. During his retirement years, he wrote a memoir that detailed some of the terrible events he endured. This is an article on my grandfather in Bell Labs. He was one of the leading engineers. Alec Feiner has many inventions, but his two most important are the PBX and the ferry switch. The PBX was a machine that connected many phones to a few lines or trunk using different extensions. The other machine replaced older telephone switches. Without his modern switch, the United States phone system would not have been able to handle the growth from 40 million phones in 1950 to 150 million in 1970. Alec Feiner was awarded with more than 39 patents, the Bell Laboratories Fellow Award, and the IEEE Award. He worked very hard his whole life. I am happy and proud to be his grandson. He died peacefully of Parkinson's in 2014 in Sarasota, Florida. These three Jewish inventors had the courage to dream big and make those dreams a reality. It was this determination that helped our world unite and thrive after the Second World War. I think our country would do well to continue to encourage such innovation. I'd like to end by giving a special thanks to my grandmother, Helen Feiner, and my uncle, Len Feiner. Thank you for helping me to get know my grandfather.
It's now my pleasure to invite up Isa Grumbach-Bloom.
Good afternoon, everyone. Though this is not a traditional bat mitzvah, my project began in the traditional way, with my Torah portion. My parsha is Vayitze, which is the story of Leah and Rachel, and how Jacob works 7 years so he will be allowed to marry Rachel, his love, but then was given, I hate that word in relation to humans, Leah, her unmarried older sister, instead. He then works another 7 years so he can marry Rachel. As I read, I realized that what was going on in this portion was very sexist and not okay. Leah and Rachel had no purpose in life other than having babies. They were even given, there's that word again, 2 maidservants, Bilhah and Zilpah, who would have babies for them when they were incapable of doing so. This bothered me, that the Torah, a scripture that had been read for thousands of years by huge numbers of Jews, was representing this perspective of women, that they were just objects to be used. There were very few moments of rebellion, unless you count the part where Rachel steals her father's teraphim, which is a small idol, and then hides it by saying, "The way of women is upon me." I found that although this was rebellious, it was not for Rachel's own good, but for her husband, Jacob. This was around the time that the Access Hollywood video of Trump came out, the one where he talked about women as if they were objects, not people who deserved as much respect as men. This all bothered me so much that I realized I wanted to do something about it, express my opinion. So I started researching Jewish women who I found had made a difference in the world as women. There are many of them, and they were all brave, strong, proud women who knew that they were more than what everybody believed. As I began doing this research, I came across an exhibit in the Jewish Women's Archive called Women of Valor. The exhibit referred to a passage from Proverbs that Jewish men used to sing to their wives called Eshet Chayu. It is praising all the things that women do, how they are women of valor. But in the passage, woman of valor doesn't mean a strong, capable woman, but one who keeps the house running and has children. One line from it is, "She repays his good, but never his harm, all the days of her life." Since today it is recited mainly in the Orthodox community, most of you probably didn't know what Eshet Chayo was. I didn't either. But for thousands of years, it was a part of Judaism, and today, almost every Orthodox man still repeats this passage to his wife on Shabbat. After Trump was elected president, I realized that I would need to be out there in the world much more, fighting for the rights of women everywhere. Trump, I knew, had no respect for women and what they could do. That made everything I had been doing for my core project even more powerful. I want to inspire other women and men to stand up and fight, because if we don't, we will never advance in society. And though sexism now is not what it was hundreds or thousands of years ago, we still have a long way to go. The Jewish Women's Archive exhibit that I found rethought what and who a Jewish woman of valor could be, and that is what I want to do as well. I find the best way I express myself is through singing, so I have written a song that, in a way, rewrites Eshet Chayu. It explains how I feel about the way women were and are treated, and what the phrase woman of valor means to me. She's a mother, she's a daughter, she's a sister, and she's a lover. She's a dreamer, but she's a wife, so she could never be anything else. Never had a chance to realize what she could do. She wasn't anything like me and you. Her whole life, she had no notion what she could be, We don't know when the battle will be over. We don't know when the battle will be over. She's a worker, she's a fighter, she's an achiever, and she's a writer, she's a believer. She's a leader, she is very dangerous, but she's stuck in a game that she doesn't wanna play. She knows the world will have to change someday, so she'll fight till she gets justice for everyone, everyone. We don't know when the battle will be over, but we know we will fight. We don't know when the battle will be over, but we know we will fight to the very end. Whoa, whoa, to the very end. Whoa, whoa, to the very end. We are bigger and we are better. We are fighters and we are winners. So let's fight till we get justice for everyone, everyone. We don't know when the battle will be over, but we know we will fight. We don't know when the battle will be over, but we know we will fight to the very end. Whoa, whoa, to the very end. Whoa, whoa, to the very end.
It's my great pleasure now to invite up Benjamin Viorst.
Today, I'm going to be talking about my grandfather, Milton Viorst, a political journalist, and the career he made for himself writing about a subject that is important to all Jews, Israel. My grandfather was born in Paterson, New Jersey in 1930 and went to Rutgers University and the Columbia School of Journalism. He started out as a reporter for the Bergen Record in New Jersey and the New York Post, and then in 1960 he moved to Washington, D.C. and worked for the New York Post there, then the Washington Post, and then went on to become a regular columnist for the long-gone Washington Star. He reported on many major events of the 60s, including the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement, and on national politics generally. He also wrote books on a range of political and historical subjects, one about the relationship between FDR and Charles de Gaulle of France called Hostile Allies, another about the Republican Party called Fall from Grace, and in 1980, an exploration of the 1960s called Fire in the Streets, which was reviewed on the front page of the New York Times Book Review. But in 1967, an event took place that completely changed the direction of his career, although not all at once. This event was Israel's Six-Day War. A quick bit of background. As many of you know, in 1948, the area that had been known as Palestine was divided by the United Nations into two countries, a state for the Jews called Israel, and another for the Arab people of that area that would keep the name Palestine. The ancient holy city of Jerusalem was divided between them. Because it was established on land that had been occupied mostly by Arabs for many centuries, the creation of a Jewish state was not accepted by the surrounding Arab countries. In 1948 to 1949, and again in 1956, Israel successfully fought off attacks from these countries. And then, in 1967, Israel fought another war against its neighbors, known as the Six-Day War, because Israel won it in just 6 days. Israel then occupied parts of Syria and Egypt, and Israel also occupied all the land that had been originally set aside for the Palestinians, areas called the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Up to today, Israel still controls these territories, on which 4.2 million Palestinians live. Like most American Jews, my grandfather took great pride in the establishment of the State of Israel, and great pride in their victories over their aggressive neighbors. He was and is a Zionist, and he believed deeply in the importance of a Jewish state, especially after the tragedy of the Holocaust. But after the 6-Day War, my grandfather noticed for the first time an attitude widespread among American Jews, and especially American Jewish writers, that he found troubling, and one that he still finds is widespread today. In preparation for this project, I spent a lot of time talking to my grandfather, and I'll let him explain for himself.
Well, American Jews, like Israelis, were intoxicated by the great victory of the 1967 Six-Day War. And I think it distorted our perspective on the relationship between Jews and Arabs. I think American Jews would have been very happy to make peace with the Arabs. The Israelis were having a difficult time because of this intoxication at the very beginning. And gradually, as the Israelis moved further and further away from making peace with the Arabs, I think the American Jews moved with them. This, in my judgment, was a terribly dangerous position for us to take. We wanted to support the Israelis, but not to support the Israelis in what seemed to be ultimately a suicidal course.
My grandfather, on the other hand, had very different ideas, although it took him some time to work them all out, about how Israel should deal with its Arab neighbors, including the Palestinian people.
What I don't believe is that Israel can count on being a superior military force forever. I think that Israel has to find a way to live with its neighbors. The idea of establishing Israel in the first place was to make a secure state for Jews who are coming in from all over the world. But the fact is that not by absorbing the territories, particularly the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, into Israel, what we have is a country with majority Arabs, and I don't think that's particularly what the Jews ever wanted, and I don't think it's healthy either for the Jews or the Arabs. I think there has to be a peace, and the only peace that makes sense is a peace where the Arabs, the Palestinians particularly, can have their own state to follow their own course, and the Jews have their state to follow their course.
Although in the years right after the Six-Day War, the subject of Israel was new to him, my grandfather felt it was important for Israel and for its Arab neighbors and the Palestinian people that his point of view be heard. And so, over the next decade, he began writing more and more on the subject in his bi-weekly column. He did not go easy on Israel. My grandfather criticized Israel's insistence on holding on to the West Bank and Gaza Strip. He criticized Israel's unwillingness to consider sharing Jerusalem with the Palestinians, and he criticized Israel's treatment of the Palestinian people it ruled over. He also criticized the growth of Jewish settlements in the occupied territories. He also began traveling regularly to Israel and the Arab countries to interview political leaders like Yitzhak Rabin and Menachem Begin in Israel, King Hussein of Jordan, and Yasser Arafat of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and to speak with regular people. In the 1980s, he turned his attention full-time to writing on the Middle East, and in 1987, he wrote his first book about Israel, called Sands of Sorrow. I just want to read a few representative words from the first chapter. Many Jews in our time believe that on issues relating to Israel there must be no study, that the Jewish people must speak in one voice. Jews whom I respect, Jews whom I love, Jews with power and Jews without, have tacitly taken an oath to waive the right of dissent from the policies of the State of Israel. It seemed to me more appropriate, more loyal, if I may say so, not to remain silent at all, but to shout for everyone to hear, if I had a foreboding that Israel was embarked on a perilous journey. In the years since Sands of Sorrow, my grandfather has continued to write about Israel and its neighbors from his unique perspective. He has published 5 more books on the subject and was also for several years Middle East correspondent for the New Yorker magazine. My grandfather also involved himself in the movement to bring peace to Israel, helping found the organizations Americans for Peace Now and J Street. His most recent book, which came out last year, is A History of Zionism. Each book shares a similar theme, the need for peace and the painful compromises he believes Israel and its Arab neighbors too must make to get there. My grandfather's ideas have never been particularly popular within the American Jewish community. Although with the conflict still unresolved in Israel, he hopes and believes the younger generations of Jews might be more open to the kind of approach he has been pushing for. Still, he does not regret having devoted his career to this challenge.
It became apparent to me that changing the minds of Israelis and American Jews was not going to be easy. I have always wanted this to be an open debate. I think there's a great deal of emphasis within the Jewish community upon loyalty. I think that loyalty to the Jewish community, when I think it is mistaken, is something I really couldn't do. I really had to do what I had to do. I'm a consenting adult. I knew that I offended a lot of people in saying these things, but it's something that I think is important, and I thought it was important a long time ago. After 50 years of occupation, I think it is extremely important now as well.
I can't say I'm enough of an expert, even after doing this project, to tell you if my grandfather is all the answer to the Mideast conflict. But I can say that learning about my grandfather's career over the past few months has been an incredibly enlightening and inspiring experience. His utter devotion to an unpopular opinion that wasn't easy for him to express really sends a message to me. He was himself, and he expressed his own views, and that philosophy will travel with me wherever I decide to go or whoever I decide to be.
One of the many extraordinary things about our Midtown Workmen's Circle Shula is how we all work together. Students, parents, teachers, all bring their strengths and passions to make our Shula what it is, which is an extraordinary, extraordinary place. And it's a good moment to say thank you to Lauren Epstein and Noah Ballinger, who are out there. From our Shula. Noah was a bar mitzvah not that long ago, and also to thank a parent who's running sound for us today, Erin Alexander. And we also wouldn't be the Shula that we are without our wonderful mentor, Kolya Borodulin.
Hi guys. Dear B'nai Mitzvah students, dear guests, being a Yiddish language and culture instructor, I'm always looking for an opportunity to teach this beautiful, precious, almost 1,000-year young Mama Loshen, Yiddish. And today is not an exception. I wanted to teach you one very meaningful word which greatly fits our amazing B'nai Mitzvah class. And the word is achrayes, which means responsibility. I want you to repeat this word after me. Achrayes. Amazing. What is amazing that this word comes from Hebrew and thus unites and connects these two beautiful major Jewish languages. I was very, very impressed with our Bnei Mitzvah class sense of responsibility, achrayas, preparing them for this journey to research their roots and executing oral family history project. It was unbelievable sense of responsibility which helped them to dig deep and to find amazing facts about their families and to connect Jewish history on a personal level, to learn about these horrible things which happened to Jewish people throughout centuries. Persecutions, pogroms, Holocaust, immigration, but at the same time also to learn about the unprecedented achievements which the Jewish people gave to our mankind. So this was one sense of responsibility, guys. I'm so proud of the project you prepared. And the sense of responsibility, achrayas, stimulated our students to do a very meaningful research in the project Remember Us, where they dedicated the year, their Bnei Mitzvah year, to those children who perished during the Holocaust. Not only they dedicated the year, they did a thorough, meaningful research about the places and vibrant social Jewish life in that places, which was so brutally destroyed by the Holocaust. I'm very proud of your achievement, guys. And I wish you to carry on with this incredible, astounding sense of responsibility you have, whenever you are and wherever you are. Thank you so much. We are going to have a special ceremony honoring the children who didn't make it to live, who didn't live to celebrate their own Bnei Mitzvahs and who perished during the Holocaust.
I will remember Samuel Jazerski.
I will remember Rebecca Matza.
I will remember Mayor Joseph.
I will remember Doba Meshka.
I will remember Ish Jasmine.
I will remember Nusia Kotek.
I will remember Zev Jakobovitz.
I will remember Tamar Marin.
everybody gets an introduction. And now the next presentation, Shtetl Dreaming by Alice Kandel Zasloff.
I wish the whole world had changed. I wish the whole world changed.
How do you wish it would change?
That filmy.
The topic for my speech is dreaming. I love dreaming because it helps me find who I am as a Jew and even more as a person. Looking back on this video, I do not remember when I was this small. I don't know what I meant by, I wish the whole world would change, but I know that I was a dreamer. I've been trying to interpret this little girl I'm seeing. After I say, I wish the whole world would change, I can't answer my dad's question. I look into her eyes and realize that we share a dream. That little girl whom I have no memory of is me. I will be honest. I thought that being Jewish was being kosher, praying to God, saying thank you to this vile and poisonous world. I thought this way until I came to Workman's Circle. I then realized I wasn't alone. I met many other people who also had dreams. I learned about my ancestors and how they lived. I heard stories about boat trips from Eastern Europe to be part of the American dream. After that, whenever I took a boat, I would let the wind blow against my neck. I didn't know at the time, but now I realize that I felt a strange connection. I wasn't a dreamer, I was part of a dream. Dreaming is not just thoughts and emotions that pass through your head as you sleep. Dreaming is an art, a practice, a ritual, a meaning, an understanding, and in some ways a God. Many dreams connect with Judaism, for instance, Jacob's dream. When God reaches out to Jacob in the Torah, and angels descend up and down the staircase God has created, Jacob feels a scary presence. There are different interpretations of God, just as there are different interpretations of dreams. If you take dreaming practice seriously, you'll find that God isn't necessarily one thing. I myself am a science lover. I believe in the Big Bang. I believe Galileo, Isaac Newton, and Einstein's theories. I personally do not think that God created light with a snap of his fingers. When you dream, you can sometimes feel unexplained emotion, a strange presence that is indescribable, or like Jacob, a scary being of immense power. Perhaps voices or sounds, a strange force that forbids you to speak, magically bright light. All of these dreams capture God's essence. I'm absolutely not saying that God travels into your dreams. I'm saying that God is a part of you. I have done a practice called lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is nothing to fool around with. It is studied in Zen and Buddhist traditions. It's a serious art. Lucid dreaming allows you to experience the dream so that you are actually in control of your body. You understand that you are dreaming, and you are able to walk around and explore your dream world. It is a magical feeling. When you fly, you are really flying, but you'll find that you're a lot more afraid of things than you think. You'll either have a magical free night or wake up with painful adrenaline, not even knowing why you were scared. When you are lucid dreaming, it is more real than when you are awake. As the famous painter Marc Chagall said, quote, "All our interior world is reality, and that perhaps more so than our apparent world." It is not just yourself in your dream, it is a spirit. I won't fully explain every aspect of lucid dreaming because it would take an hour, but I can say that in order to come close to understanding this mysterious adrenaline, you need to search for yourself inside your dreams. Before I began lucid dreaming, I went through a phase where I would wake up and hallucinate. I would find myself not being able to move and would imagine I had some strange figure right at my bedside. Sometimes I would even hear the sound of the dream when I woke up and would have to shake my head twice for it to go away. These dreams haunted me every single night, and there was a large period I went through with almost no sleep. I talked about this with my dad, and he suggested lucid dreaming. I had my first lucid dream when I was about 10 years old. It was the first time I had ever fought with myself. A wobbly bridge over lava lay before me.
I was scared, but soon after that, I told the bridge to stop wobbling, and it obeyed. I then got really into lucid dreaming and kept on practicing. I still had occasional hallucinations, so one night I decided to end the monster once and for all. I was having a sleepover with my cousins, and a strange figure appeared. I then took a deep breath, woke up in my dream, and felt comforted. The ends of my lips curved into a gentle smile, and I closed my eyes. After that day, no more hallucinations came. I had defeated the monster. As I look back on those days, I realized I was lost. After I learned how to lucid dream, I found myself. There is one person in Judaism whom I can relate to as much as my ancestors, Marc Chagall. Marc Chagall was an artist, but not just any artist. He was Jewish and loved Judaism, but didn't let its structures and ideas perish in the embers of written text. He loved by painting dreams. He painted Jacob's dreams from the Torah and hinted at the struggles of Jewish people. He didn't just paint one discrete dream, he painted concepts and ideas. He saw his work as, quote, not the dream of one people, but of all humanity. Many people questioned his art abilities, but no matter what happened, he persisted. Marc Chagall is like me in the sense that he found his own way, following the trail of the brush that guided him through his dreams. In his autobiography, he says, quote, if I create with my heart, almost all my intentions remain. If it is with my head, almost nothing. The brain can be poisonous and dangerous. When you are experiencing dreams, your heart is completely free and open. That is why I find this man so inspiring. Chagall paints love. He paints truth. He paints hope. He paints loneliness. And he paints what it means to be Jewish. I have been on a shaky road when it comes to identifying myself with religion, but thanks to lucid dreaming, Chagall, and the Workman's Circle, I now know what it means to be Jewish. How do I wish the whole world would change? That's for another speech.
Our next presenter is Caleb Horowitz.
Hey, how's everybody doing right now? You're good? Okay. So today I'm going to be presenting on the 1972 Munich Olympics, but it's much more than what you think. So before I actually talk about what happened there, I want to talk about the importance of the Olympics as a whole. You see, of course, you get the best athletes from every single sport in the world to come together to compete, just compete so well in such a great fashion. Everybody's equal there. It doesn't matter which gender you are. It doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter. None of your opinions matter. It just matters how you play and how you do it. Even if you're not a fan of sports, you can still appreciate it. I'm not a fan of rhythmic gymnastics, but I can still appreciate the people that do it, and I can appreciate that everybody's equal in rhythmic gymnastics. But I feel that the most important thing is that it helps unite everybody in the world. There are very few things that unite us. I mean, there's terrorism, war, I could go on and on. But of course, the Olympics is the one thing that can truly unite everybody from all over the world just to compete. But this was not the case for the Munich Olympics. Here you can see a picture of the last Olympics where Adolf Hitler was there witnessing all of the events in the 1930s. After the Holocaust and the fascist dictatorship of Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, Germany was trying to reinvent itself as a fun, tolerant, and liberal country. As you can see here, they're wearing colorful clothing, they're walking around with flags, but one bad thing about this was that they would not have a lot of security there, since they were supposed to be, oh, look at us, we're Germany, we're fun. They didn't have a lot of armed forces, and they had very, very little security. Here you can see the Israeli team, which were targeted by the people that would attack them, the terrorists. But before I get into what happened and the tragic deaths of the athletes, I want to get into who Black September was, which were the people that carried out the attack. Black September was a terrorist organization founded on September 16th, 1970. They were named after a conflict with Palestinian militants and the nation of Jordan when they cracked down on the military presence of the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization in Jordan, and the clash between the Jordanians and the PLO forces resulted in many, many horrible deaths of Palestinians and Jordanians, and this was just awful altogether. Now, the name of this event was called Black September, and so the terrorist organization took after that name. Black September, however, committed many other acts of terror before the Munich Olympics. They were responsible for the murder of Jordanian's prime minister in 1971. Also in 1971, they attempted to assassinate Jordan's ambassador to London, and in 1972, they hijacked a Belgian aircraft. And again, in 1972, they sabotaged a West German electrical plant. These Olympics would not become associated with great sporting events and equality. These Olympics would be associated with the deaths of 11 Jewish athletes and coaches who were murdered during a 20-hour period beginning on September 5th, of course, Black September. They wanted to do it in a time that was known for the deaths of all those people to, unfortunately, commit more murder. When the team of Palestinian terrorists who were acting with Black September and were acting with the help of neo-Nazi groups and East German operatives hopped the fence at the poorly guarded Olympic facility, like as I said before, there was very little security, and this would cost the lives of the athletes and coaches. The terrorists found their way into the athletes' living quarters, killing 2 athletes who attempted to resist them. The remaining 9 were murdered about 20 hours later on a Munich airfield after a botched rescue attempt mounted by German forces. Using a machine gun fire, grenades, and other weapons, the terrorists killed the athletes rather than surrender them to the authorities. It was just really an awful thing for everybody. The whole world was in shock at the time. Israel was in shock, and most of the Middle East was in shock. It was a really awful thing. I want to share with you a story of one of the most famous Jewish athletes of all time, Mark Spitz, who was an Olympic swimmer. Mark Spitz participated in these games where he won 7 gold medals, which was a record for swimming up until Michael Phelps broke it a couple of Olympics back. It was an incredible feat by him. And as you can see on this slide, there's one of the most iconic photos of Mark Spitz, and really one of the most iconic photos in Olympic history, where he's sitting there in a tight Speedo with all of his medals around his neck. However, this was not taken in Munich. This was taken in London because of the fear that, since he was Jewish, of course, the terrorists would be targeting him. Whether this is the right impulse or not is still debated to this day. And there's another story I want to share. Andre Spitzer was a fencing coach that was murdered by Black September. I have a small anecdote from his wife right here. While strolling in the Olympic Village, he spotted members of the Lebanese team and told me he was going to go and say hello to them. I said to them, "Are you out of your mind?" Israel was in a state of war with Lebanon at the time. "Enki," Andre said calmly. "That's exactly what the Olympics are all about. Here I can go to them. I can talk to them. I can ask them how they are. That's exactly what the Olympics are all about." I want to remember Andre Spitzer because he was a great man, and I want to remember the rest of the victims of Munich. However, this isn't just about the Munich Olympics. This isn't just about Mark Spitz. This isn't just about Andre Spitzer. This is about their legacy. This is about the legacy of Jewish cultural figures and about the legacy of us. Nothing will ever, no ideology, no practice will ever strip us away from our identity as Jews, as some of the people on this slide, Albert Einstein, Bob Dylan, Bernie Sanders, and Sandy Koufax, which there's a poster of right over there, they're all in touch with their Judaism, and they're all in touch with who they are as Jews. Being Jewish is part of our legacy, whether if you're an Olympic athlete, whether if you're a homeless person, whether if you're anybody, it's part of our legacy. It's part of who we are. Thank you.
Please welcome our next presenter, Ella Roundy.
Hi, my name is Ella Roundy, and I'm so happy to have the opportunity to share all of the volunteer work we have done this year. My core project is some of our community service projects, along with the Bike-a-thon event we are having in a week. I think that community service is a crucial part of becoming a Jewish adult, because giving back is important for so many reasons. The inspiring words of Adam the farmer on the organic Honey Nut Cheerios cereal box states that it's important to leave the world better than you found it. Community service helps people to appreciate how lucky they are and also helps them practice gratitude. First of all, the Bike-a-thon is taking place on June 17th at 11 o'clock in Central Park. We are raising money for 3 organizations called Doctors Without Borders, 350.org, and Water for South Sudan. If you want more information on these charities or want to donate, you can go to the picture of the link of the website on my project board. In addition to the Bike-a-thon, we have also done a lot of community service this year. Some of the work we have done includes volunteering for DeRote, Broadway Community Soup Kitchen, and the Special Olympics. At DeRote, we split up into groups of 2 and 3 and delivered Passover packages to isolated elderly living in New York. We got the chance to hear all of their interesting stories, which included working for Eleanor Roosevelt and being a Holocaust survivor. Just by talking to people for an hour, we were able to raise their spirits and lower their loneliness. We also volunteered at Broadway Community Soup Kitchen, where we sorted clothes and cooked food for the hungry on Martin Luther King's Day. Half of us went upstairs to the church area where we went through clothing donations and sorted the clothing that would be given out later that day. The other half of us helped prepare food and also clean dishes and organized all of the supplies being used. We all had the chance to hear the head chef make a speech and pass out trays of food. The last place we volunteered that I'm going to mention is the Special Olympics hockey competition, where we got the chance to interact with hockey players of all different ages. Some of us worked to escort people from station to station while others ran the station. It was important for all volunteers to make sure that the hockey players did not stray, and also to make sure to cheer everyone on and have a positive attitude. I also want to thank our community service coordinator, EJ Bailey, who helped make everything happen even though she couldn't be here today. There are many different ways to interpret rule following. Dan Pierce states that while you're sitting there wondering why you've kept all the rules and you still haven't achieved everything you've been promised, someone else has been breaking all the rules and seeing all the success that comes from doing so. In my Torah portion, it talks about following God's rules. It states that if you follow his rules, you will be blessed with fertility, good soil to plant your crops, and good luck. It also states that your enemies will suffer. However, if you neglect to follow his rules, you will be sentenced with a life of suffering. This brings up a question. When is it okay to break the rules, and when is it wrong? A rule in the Torah that I think should be followed, which is one of its most famous quotes, is, "You must befriend the stranger, because you were once strangers in the land of Egypt." These powerful words represent what accountability should be like, and the ethics that go into making certain decisions. In this case, the Torah states that people who have suffered know how it feels to suffer, and so they feel empathy and should have the desire to make sure that people suffering cease to suffer. This relates back to my core project and is also the complete opposite of it. It is the same in the way that people should volunteer because they don't want people around them to suffer. At the same time, this quote and my core project are completely different because the quote states that people who empathize should help, whereas my core project focuses on anyone having the capability to make the world a better place. Overall, I've learned from my Torah portion that there are many ways to view ideas, and it is up to you to decide how to analyze them. I'm now going to chant part of my Torah portion. Ve'ata Yisrael ma Adonai Elohecha shoel me'imach kim lirah et Adonai Elohecha lalechet b'chol derachav ulahava oto ולעבוד את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך.
I also want to take a moment to thank yet another Shula graduate who's here helping today, and that is Benji Kandel Zasloff over here, who's stage managing for us. And our Workman's Circle Shula Village is so incredibly enhanced by our social justice director, Hannah Temple.
I'm so honored to be speaking here today. I want to say a huge congratulations for all the work that's been done. This is the conclusion of my 6th year working at the Shula, and so I knew many of these kids when they were 7, and I was still just a few years out of college. So I learned everything I know about teaching right alongside these students, and that is not an exaggeration. And the biggest thing that I've learned is that youth are incredibly powerful and resilient and creative people, and that their power is routinely overlooked and underestimated, and not the least by their teachers. I'm the social justice teacher for the Shula, which means I'm like a coach, but for political activism. And I'm really happy to be in a community that works to push itself, because we know that although we don't mean to, we're all teaching kids every day lessons that we want to and lessons that we don't want to. We're teaching kids lessons that we mean to, and we're also teaching kids things like it's normal for rich people to live in nice houses while poor people live in ghettos. We're teaching things like it's normal for service workers to be people of color, and it's not normal for white people to do that work. And a lot of us are asking right now what lessons kids are learning in today's America. On the other hand, we did some work with Make the Road New York this year, and we made phone calls to Governor Cuomo. We asked him to include undocumented immigrants under his bill that would send young people from low-income families to free college. And one student wrote in his phone script, "Governor Cuomo, you got to go to college. Why shouldn't another person?" It's wonderful to work with people who are young enough who straight up think that it is confusing and unacceptable that people should live in bigger or smaller houses because of how much money they have or the citizenship that they were born with. And people who haven't moved past that straight to, well, that's how it is, and so now what do we do? So the role of an educator is to ask what allows us to forget those kinds of thoughts in the day-to-day. What allows any of us to accept the gross indecencies, the inequalities, the bigotries for a minute or for a year to forget? And then to take what might feel at first like a tangent, how do the forces of enforced forgetting and the forces of cultural assimilation work together? From the Shula, we ask, does learning Yiddish and studying our history and culture push back against all of that? Push back against a world where we don't recognize the things that it might be harder or more inconvenient to recognize. And if it does, then, well, so what's next? Was kan je macht? Es ist America. What can we do now that we're in America? Look, it's been a really difficult year. It's been a year when our community as a whole and each of us has been deeply activated. And even so, we've been unable to mobilize to every action that we wanted to. We all wanted to go to the airport, to the parks, to raise our voices. We made art. We wanted to talk to everyone and change everything. But we were able to mobilize politically as a community, and that is a huge gift. And we were able to do it by following the vision of a really intergenerational community. And so that's why I'm here to urge you all to take leadership from young people whose visions of the world really can show us something that we may not be able to imagine in this moment and that we deeply need. So thank you all for everything that you have shared and will share with us today.
So we set up for our next song. We also want to take a moment to thank Emma Alabaster for so beautifully helping and putting together the music for today.
Social justice activism revelates the Jew. We cannot see the suffering and not put up a fight. The sound of self-entitlement emerges as a right. Selfishness is trumped, okay, brings muscle to our cause. Until we end supremacy, our fight will never pause. One day, when the glory comes, it'll be ours, it'll be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure. Now the war is not over, victory isn't won, but we'll fight on to the finish. And when it's all done, we'll cry, oh, 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 we'll cry, This movement is a rhythm for us. Glory is positioning us. Our religion us. The need to speak our mind is surplusing in us. Shetta lives in us, bringing up a rebel in us. You know you want to join and resist with us one day. When the glory comes, it'll be ours. It'll be ours. Oh, one day. When the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory.
All right, come on, you guys, give it up for that. We're so happy to introduce the next presentation by Jordan Davis.
Is the aim of moral life to achieve personal perfection, or is it to create a decent, just, and compassionate society? I suppose the intuitive answer for most people would probably be both. My Torah portion, Naso, consists of 3 passages that contains the Jewish laws of purity, faithfulness, and obtaining priestly blessings. In one of the laws of purity, there's a temporary abstinence that is taken in order to achieve purity in the eyes of God, for a period of time by a Nazarite. The Nazarite is a soul who practices restraint from personal or material enjoyments. The Nazarite can appear as the purest, yet the Nazarite can also appear quite extreme in their outwardly appearance and dutiful practices. Can priestly pure lifestyle lead to personal perfection, yet at the same time be diminishing the hopes and wishes for societal peace? Do some receive more personal happiness than others? Do some receive more than their fair share of societal unrest? All over our world, throughout history, and even now, today, there are places of conflict that challenge personal happiness and societal peace. In places where religious purism has converted to extremism, the lines have and continue to be blurred, and in several areas of our world, violence continues. Today, in countries like Syria, Sudan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Israel, and in the Palestinian territories, there is conflict or war and outbreaks of terror. Does the fine line of those who hold the ruling power lean more towards personal happiness and neglect societal peace altogether? In the description of the Nazarite in Parsha Naso, there is a constant need to find the balance between the two. In the case of Israel and Palestinian territories today, we know there is a tension in the capital city of Jerusalem, but I also know it as the birthplace of my grandfather. It is also the birthplace to the 3 monotheistic religions. Through news clips and internet articles, one can see how the fine line between personal happiness and societal peace is blurred. Examining history of all people who live and have lived there over generations, pre-borders, we see that the situation was once quite different in simpler times. My grandfather was just a little boy growing up in Palestine. From his detailed storytelling, I gather his days were filled with the average amount of family time spent at home, plenty of outdoor play, fun times with neighborhood kids spent playing hide and seek, riding bikes, and climbing trees around Bestial Street in Jerusalem. Throughout my life, but especially this year, in conjunction with my Sunday school projects, my grandfather has told me some amazing stories. Many of these stories are centered around his upbringing, his childhood, and the tender memories of his parents. These stories resonated with me as I began to connect my grandfather's experiences of personal happiness and the overall links necessary for societal peace to thrive. Because Palestinians and Jews gathered around in open-air markets and sold food and wares to the public, their children would gather innocently around to examine each other's toys, to play a quick game of hide and seek or tag, or to kick a soccer ball around before being summoned back to their parents' side. The British Army had taken the region from the fallen Ottoman Empire in 1917. They fully patrolled Palestine and Jerusalem by 1920. Life between the Palestinians and Jews seemed to be somewhat simple. These relations allowed for folks to buy, sell, and trade goods between the Arab and Jewish communities. My grandfather's family rented their home from a Palestinian landlord who would come around monthly for his rent. He'd be served by my great-grandmother, and he'd often pick up my grandfather, who was a toddler at the time, toss him lovingly into the air, and cradle him. He'd often sing a few Palestinian nursery rhymes to him and kept his eye on him as he sipped his tea. Their landlord was often weary from his long walk from a distant village in the outskirts of town. After a short stay with my Jewish great-grandparents and their gracious hospitality, he would regain his strength and would make the long journey back to his village. After the War of Independence of '48, the house where my grandfather grew up was considered by the Israeli government to be abandoned property and was seized by the state. The landlord was never seen again. This is my great-grandfather. He was a baker, an early riser. He was issued special clearance to pass by the British in order to get to his job at a bakery on the other side of Jerusalem during the morning hours of curfew. Each morning he began his long walk before sunrise to get to Pat's Bakery where he worked. It was a popular bakery with the British soldiers who were stationed around the downtown Jerusalem area, and they would drop in often. I'm told that my great-grandfather had a terrific sense of humor. I wonder if he made the soldiers laugh at Pat's Bakery. Although his sense of humor was likely better understood in his birth country of Poland, I'm told that humor always got him through the day and got him through life. By the 1930s, Jewish and Arab resistance movements tried to overthrow the British mandate and drive them out of Jerusalem. And some people even spoke about establishing a state of their own. And by the time my grandfather turned 11, the Jews had established a state, and newer problems would emerge in the region to the degree that we know them today. On the other hand, my grandmother's upbringing, which was spent in eastern Romania escaping Nazi forces and random Nazi roundups, was definitely one of the brutality and panic, as her family was forced to take on a refugee lifestyle from 1942 to 1948 before leaving Eastern Europe for good. Societal peace of her early childhood was definitely in a state of obvious ruin during the savagery of World War II. Over the months, I've come to think of these stories as personal histories that echo his place in the unfolding pages of history. It acts as a guide to establishing the balance one needs in daily life between simplicity and complication, between independence and occupation, between personal happiness and societal peace. It brings me to the conclusion that true personal happiness cannot be achieved without societal peace, and vice versa. Societal peace is dependent on sacrifices that each party is willing to make for any amount of time in order to find a balance between the two, and possibly to forgive past aggressions. But there's also a warning. When the Nazarite, in the eyes of God, abstains from pleasure in order to achieve the purest form of themselves, they must be careful not to fall into the trappings of hate and anger, which can result in violence, but rather find restraint and understanding. I think it's difficult to find meaningful happiness while others suffer all around you. If hope in humanity lies in seeing that your fellow neighbors' freedoms flourish, those who pray to a different God than you do and eat different foods than you do, it's because your neighbors are also seeking a hassle-free road to personal happiness and also want societal peace for themselves and their children. Always remember the Nazarite who gives up something in order to obtain holiness and peaceful insight. It is important, though, that Jewish law demands our own happiness be worked into the equation. Always remember a balance between personal goals and societal goals and how to best maintain them. They are necessary for truly moving forward as a society. And remember, giving up something of power and control could sometimes lead to total happiness. It's been said that those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it. Therefore, any two cultures on earth today, so deeply at odds and in dispute, really must embrace their common history, but also their personal history apart from one another. That is, if they truly seek to arrive at the one true generation who will find that center between personal happiness and societal peace.
So we've come to the moment of our final presentation. Before we do that, I want to take a moment to thank Jeff Warschauer for beautiful accompaniment. And I think I'm going to speak maybe on behalf of the faculty, of the teachers, when I, in particular, want to thank Beth. She's just simply made our lives so much better. Thank you for everything she does. And it just so happens that the final presentation today is by Gigi Zaslow-Steckel.
In my paper cut, I started out with a cutout of my hands. A tree is growing throughout them, representing veins. The skyline around them represents New York City, where I was born and raised. Flowers growing off the buildings show the beauty of nature and how we are still able to find it and create more in our city. The monarch butterflies flying above represent immigration, the people who are coming to America today, and my ancestors who traveled here from Eastern Europe, came through Ellis Island, and created a life on the Lower East Side. Making art has helped me to notice every single detail. It makes me wish I could capture the exact life and emotion that radiates around every little thing. I can't remember a time when I didn't make some sort of art. I remember in kindergarten, I was focused on perfecting my drawing of a cat face. I knew that for my bat mitzvah project, I wanted to create an art piece, but I didn't know what. When Deborah introduced me to the folk art of Jewish paper cutting and brought in a studying paper cut by one of her friends, I fell in love with the intricate details that can come from just cutting a piece of paper. I didn't really know how I was going to pull one off and make it something I was proud of, but I had already set my mind on an image of what I wanted to create, so there was no turning back. Jewish paper cutting is a folk art, which means that it's art made by everyday people and expresses something about a culture or tradition. In Jewish communities in Eastern Europe, boys in Heder, a school where children would study Torah and learn the Aleph Beis, would make little paper cuts called roiselech, like little roses, or shavuoslech, after the holiday of Shavuos. They would also make little cutouts that were glued to the front of notebooks that were called cheese slices. You didn't have to be a famous artist to make a paper cut. Jews from Eastern Europe, Spain, the Middle East, and all over the world would make cutouts for sukkah decorations, marriage contracts, births, and more. In my paper cuts, I wanted it to represent my own style of art, but I also wanted to include symbols from traditional paper cuts and connect these symbols to my own life. The very first paper cut that I made had two hands filled with branches and surrounded by flowers and leaves. It was inspired by a Moroccan Jewish paper cut that I loved. This paper cut shows a priest's hands with text from a blessing that Isaac bestowed upon Jacob in the Torah. The text stretches through the palms and looks to me like veins. I love how the hands are so expressive, made up of simple lines with natural color. Next slide. I also included symbols from today in the paper cuts I made this year. For a flyer for the May Day protest for immigrant and worker rights at Foley Square, I created a paper cut of a monarch butterfly, which is a symbol used by activists today to show that immigration is beautiful. I showed one of the younger classes at shul how they could cut out butterflies the same way they cut out snowflakes. Together we created a colorful sign that read, "Let immigrants fly like butterflies. Migration is human." Earlier this year, I did a similar project with my class where we cut out designs from the letters that spelled out welcome. It was right after the election, and a friend of Emma's who taught at a school with many new immigrants told us that her students were feeling scared and that a welcome sign made by kids would make them feel more at home. Hannah also used an image of the sign to design postcards, which we sent to Governor Cuomo to support the New York State Liberty Act to provide protection for undocumented immigrants. My final paper cut has aspects drawn from traditional Jewish ones, but also includes my own taste and ideas so that I'm really able to tell a story and deeply express myself. The quote in Yiddish at the bottom means, "Have hope, spring is not far off," and is from a poem by Yiddish writer I.L. Peretz. Making this paper cut showed me a new side of art that is also what I've been making for my whole life. It is folk art, the art of everyday life. It is not meant to be in a museum or sold for money. Folk art is paper snowflakes taped to our window. Folk art is puppet shows in the center of town. Folk art is sketching flowers in my notebook. Folk art is hand-drawn birthday cards for your friends and family. It is the city buildings that I stare up at every day. It is the flowers stretching up to the sunlight and the butterflies pollinating them. And it is my own hands in the center of it all. Thank you.
In a moment, the parents are going to come up to say their mazel tov to their kids, but let's hear it for all of the presentations today. And while we're clapping, the parents can line up and get ready to come up. Woo!
As you probably gleaned from her speech and glory rap, Alice is a wildly creative person who is passionately engaged in life. When she gets interested in something, Alice plunges in headfirst and doesn't look back. During their performance of the Aeneid, her second grade teacher made an observation. Others are kids on stage, but Alice is Dido. She becomes so engrossed that she's at one with her experience, inhabiting the play, the story, the horseback riding lesson, the dream. This year, Alice fell in love with language and writing, and her new favorite vocabulary word is ebullient. I can't think of a better word to describe Alice. From the moment she was born, Alice was ebullient, taking in the world with joy and wide-eyed wonder. She has a luminous approach to learning, embracing each new area and expanding her sense of self to include in her identity the actor, the animal behaviorist, the time-traveling physicist, the playwright, the lucid dreamer. Tibby Alice, we know you are a bat mitzvah, and in the eyes of Judaism, that means that you are an adult. But don't ever lose your child's mind, your ebullience, your faith in justice, your belief in magic. Beautiful dreamer, mom, dad, Benji and Shayna. Love you very much. We couldn't be proud.
We're the proud parents of Caleb Horowitz. I'm Mitch Horowitz.
And his mother, Allison Orr.
And we too we're just so proud of Caleb for being a person who others can always depend upon, not to start conflicts, but to peacefully settle conflicts. He sees the side of different stories. He sees the facets of different people's character. He refuses to listen to gossip or rumor or to spread stories about people. He's recognized as a peacemaker by his classmates, but he's also a peacemaker with the edges of a real questioner. Caleb is a searcher, and he won't accept the straight story or received opinion that is held by anyone around him. He challenges me every day on the economic viability of socialism, and if my beliefs were the opposite, he would challenge me on that, not because he sees challenging people as some sort of a game or an act of brinkmanship, but quite the opposite. Caleb knows that the best that is within us comes out when we question, and he is always questioning. And I wanted to add a quick note that his name, Caleb, happens to coincide with his Torah portion, which is chapter 13 of the book of Numbers. We didn't plan it that way. We named him Caleb because we love the name, but the name Caleb actually comes from his Torah portion. Caleb was the name of one of Moses' lieutenants, and it means loyalty.
So we're just so very proud and lucky that we're your parents, and we love you.
We are the proud parents of Jordan Davis. I'm Natalie. This is Justin. To our son, Jordan, on your very special day, we've watched you stack up building blocks in preschool. We've watched you park your Matchbox cars on top of them and alongside of them. We've watched you shoot animated movies of them for uploading to YouTube. And now we get to see you arrange the building blocks of your teenage years and on to the rest of your life. May you continue to give us nachas in all you do, but never stop being the debating, video game savvy, lover of architecture, and the history buff that we have come to know and love. We are very proud of you on your bar mitzvah day, and of course, we love you.
Congratulations, Jordan.
Good afternoon. I'm Adam, and this is Janice and Jesse, and we are Isa Grumbach-Bloom's family. It is so hard to do justice in words, in a minute, to someone you love so much. As many of you here to celebrate with us know, Isa was our desperately wanted, long-awaited baby. And yet, despite the buildup, sort of like Hamilton, she exceeded expectations. And being her parents has continued to be more of a joy than we could have ever imagined. From her first day in the world when she locked eyes with us and would not let go, she's been intensely connected to others. That exquisite attunement to the people around her has continued to be a defining characteristic of how she lives in the world. At 3 months, long before she was supposed to know the difference, she would cry uncontrollably until she threw up when handed to anyone besides her parents, something her grandmothers remember only too well. As a toddler, her empathy was so strong that she could not watch a movie whose main character was on screen alone. Why is he by himself? She would wonder right before bursting into tears. Finding Nemo was out of the question. She was the rare big sister who did not ask to return her newly arrived sibling to the hospital or the store, not even once. From the day he arrived, she has been Jesse's protector. Since he was 6 weeks old, she has been the person who makes him laugh harder than anyone in the world. As difficult as it might sometimes be for him to admit, she remains his north. And starting when she was about 8, when we would be at a gathering attended by a smaller person, Lee, Liam, Samara, Victoria, or just a random child who had latched onto her, if the child wasn't wailing with sorrow when Isa left, we would hear from the parents weeks later that they were still talking and asking about her. We see Isa's connectedness as the root of the kindness she exudes, and that kindness as the key to tikkun olam, the repair of the world that is already part of her present, and we are certain is part of her future.
Isamia, loveliest of daughters, you are beautiful inside and out. Getting to be at the center of your world for the past 12 and a half years is one of the greatest privileges of our lives. And now, here we are at a ceremony celebrating the beginning of your independence, your separation from your childhood, and from your family. We watch you bravely heading out into the world, every day seeming just a little bit older, just a little bit less ours. At this official celebration of your entering adulthood, we want to tell you that we love you with all our hearts. We have so much faith in the woman you will become, and we will always be by your side.
When we first brought Benjamin at the age of 5 to the Workman Circle, it was in the hope that the school would be able to instill in him a sense of his Jewish identity. And this was something that as kind of cosmopolitan non-believers, one of whom is not even Jewish, we were not sure we could handle on our own. So we are happy to report that 8 years later, that the project has been a total success. This is not to suggest that Benjamin is the kind of Jew who can grapple with the commentaries of the Talmud or even really knows what the Talmud is. But he is the kind of Jew who I'm confident could recite by heart the mission statement of Black Lives Matter. In Yiddish, probably. So speaking generally, the project has been, the experience of the Workman Circle has far exceeded our expectations, and it is with great sincerity that we say that how much we appreciate what the Workman Circle, in particular the teachers and the administrators and the parent community, how they contributed to turning our son into the young mensch that he is today. Now you asked about Benjamin Menschiness. And we don't want to, we're not up here to brag about our son. That's on page 12 of the program. But I do want to give him props for, and we also want to say how much we appreciate the remarkable good humor that he showed over all the years of sacrificing his Sunday mornings to classes and field trips and protest marches. And we particularly want to express how impressed we are with the work he put in this year, his B'nai Mitzvah year, in particular culminating in this project he did today. And then just speaking generally, we want to express how truly lucky that we feel every day that he is our son. So congratulations, and we love you very much.
Asher, when you were 4, you used to love the stroller. It was nearly impossible to get you to walk. You simply preferred to be pushed. One day, I tried to appeal to your pride, and I said, if your friends see you in the stroller, they may laugh at you. You stared me dead in the eye and said, if they're really my friends, they won't laugh at me. Touché. Asher, since you were the one who turned us into parents, you have been our guide in this wild adventure. We could not have asked for a better one. We are so proud of you, your warmth, your sense of humor, your kindness, your adventurous spirit. You have worked hard and accomplished so much this year at school, on the chess team, and at Shula. We have no doubt that you will rise to the challenges that you meet and bring joy and fun wherever you go. Congratulations.
I just wanted to say a quick thank you to the Workman's Circle. When we are here, we really do feel like we are home, and it's been a wonderful blessing for us to have this excuse to really get to know our family deeper and to celebrate as a family, one big family. So thank you. Congratulations, Asher.
I'm Sarah, and with my husband Richard, we're Ella Roundy's parents. And over the last few weeks, Ella's been talking a lot about how perfect her Torah portion is, because it's about thinking about how we were once strangers in the land of Egypt and the message of togetherness and charity and community that it really brings for all of us to think about. And I just want to take a moment as we look across these 400 people that are here and thank each and every one of you for being here for all 8 of these incredible students.
Where are you, Ella? I can't see you. Oh, there she is. Okay. Dear sweet Ella, your mom and I love you so much and are so proud of you. We have often reflected on how lucky we are that we get to be your parents, and that's never been more true than today. You are such a multi-talented and multifaceted young woman. You are a graceful dancer, a committed, passionate student and deep thinker, a loving big sister and daughter, an excellent friend, a responsible babysitter, a marcher for justice and equality, an expert snickerdoodle baker, the capable assistant stage manager of your school play, and so much more. And you do it all with an easygoing grace, humor, and charm. There is something deep within you that allows you to look out at our broken world and see the beauty before the brokenness. Never lose this quality. In preparing for your bat mitzvah, we all looked at tons of pictures of you from when you were a toddler, most of them candids. In just about every one, your face is lit up with a smile, because that's just who you are. As you continue to grow and become a teenager and then an adult, we, or really I, want you to take the following quote with you. It's from one of the most important artists of the 20th century, Jerry Garcia, who sang, "Without love in the dream, it will never come true." Keep bringing the same quality of love and attention to everything you do. It will serve you well, and it just might help make all the dreams you've yet to dream for yourself come true.
I'm Beth.
And I'm Josh.
And we're Gigi's parents. We are overjoyed to be here today to help celebrate Gigi and her class with our family, dear friends, and wonderful Shula community. And so grateful to her inspiring teachers, Hannah, Kolya, Deborah, and Emma, for guiding her through this meaningful process. We are also grateful to her extraordinary viola teacher, Gwen Laster, who has nurtured Gigi's musical voice and given her the confidence to improvise. As I was looking through Gigi's old art, I found 3 green Post-it notes taped together with Gigi's handwriting, maybe from 2nd grade. They say, in order, "I love everyone and I wish a good life to them. I love animals and I wish a good life to them too. And I love myself too."
Gigi, you bring so much love. and we love you so much, we are just brimming over with it. Artist, writer, violist, athlete, appreciator of every little detail. Keep learning, discovering, and taking your time to take in and express what inspires you.
From your mom and dad, your sister Naomi and your brother Leo, your grandma Barbara and grandpa Steve, your grandma Tila and your grandpa Joe, who watched you grow with so much delight and would be so proud of you today. We love you.
So again, I have the honor to bringing this ceremony to a close. Thank you, B'nai Mitzvah. We're kvelling all over the place. We're so full of pride. Thank you, parents. Ashenim Hatzikin Dank to this wonderful, wonderful group of parents. And Ashenim Hatzikin Dank, a beautiful, heartfelt thanks to our community, our extended family and friends for being part of this extraordinary celebration. I'm improvising here because we have some activities going on out there that are very important. These are not for eating, in case you don't know. You'll get to eating soon. But I feel filled with hope, gratitude, and overflowing pride. And in just a moment, in the wonderful tradition that makes us all want to shower them with sweetness, when I say eins, zwei, drei, you are going to say Mazel Tov and toss it, but we're not there yet. We have siblings and friends. I think it's siblings passing out the candy. Are you guys ready over there? B'nai Mitzvah, are you ready to be showered? Okay, are we almost ready? B'nai Mitzvah, are you ready? Want to come in right into the middle. Brilliant idea, you guys. They've always got the best ideas. Okay, eins, zwei, drei, Mazel
Simmen dog, mazel dog, simmen dog, mazel dog, simmen dog, mazel dog, simmen dog, elano. Simmen dog, mazel dog, simmen dog, mazel dog, simmen dog, simmen dog, mazel dog, simmen dog, elano. Bam